2015. I was 40 weeks and 2 days and ready for him to be out. My contractions started about 1 o'clock in the morning. They woke me up, but I would have a contraction and then would go back to sleep. So that lasted a couple of hours. I didn't know for sure if they were real or not because they weren't really all that intense. They were just kind of crampy, but enough that there were a few I had to get up and walk around. And then it must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning I got up with one, and it was pretty bad. It wasn't horrible, but I remember I made the comment that it was really hot. And at that point, my husband woke up. I didn't intend to wake him, but he heard me and he jumped out of bed and went and turned the AC down. He told me later that that's when he knew it was real. And so I remember telling him that I don't think you're going to work today, because whether it was real or not, I needed him there. So we got up and I went out into the living room and he started making breakfast. And I had a birth ball in my living room that I sat on for a while, and I had been sitting on for days and days trying to get him into the right position and get him moving down. And so I bounced on the birth ball for a while while my husband made me breakfast, and we hung out with our dogs and just kind of labored, and I ate, and it was like the best breakfast. I was really hungry at that point, and so it must have been probably 5 or 6 o'clock at this point, and he said that maybe we should start timing these to see how frequent they are or how real this might be. And so he started timing them, and there was no consistency to anything. Some of them were long, and some of them were short, and some of them were really close together, and some of them were really far apart, and there just kind of was what it was. And I wasn't super worried about timing them, but I think he needed something to do, so that was his job for the morning, so to say. Anyway, so there was one point where we had commented, and I was sitting there, and it had been almost 20 minutes since I had a contraction, and I was thinking, I'm like, oh, this is probably just, fizzling out. And as soon as we made the comment that that was happening, boom, I got a really big contraction. And we're like, okay, well, maybe not. So we decided to get up and go for a walk. We had taken Bradley classes before labor, which really helped. And they talk about walking a lot. Well, it was the middle of June, so we're like, well, if we're gonna do this walk, if we're gonna do a walk, we should go and do it now. And I managed to get my shoes on and get halfway to our front door before the worst contraction that I have had thus far hit me, and I was on my knees, and I was like, okay, we're not going for a walk. And at that point, I thought I was gonna throw up. So, we went to the bathroom, and I hugged the toilet for a while and didn't actually throw up at that point, but knew at that point there was some shift in my labor. And so I hung out on my hands and knees over the toilet for a few contractions. And my knees started to hurt because I was lying on the tile floor, and it was not the best place for me. So we moved to the couch, and we're probably looking at about 9 o'clock now in the morning, and I told my husband, can you call the midwives? And I really wanted to go into the office first. At one of my office visits, they mentioned coming into the office. They can check you and see if you're, how you're progressing. I was okay getting sent home from the midwife's office, but I just couldn't handle being sent home from the hospital. And so somewhere in the back of my head, I was still not convinced that I was truly in labor. It's first baby and whatnot. So my husband called the midwives, and we got routed through their nursing staff, and the nurses are like, "We'll just go into the hospital," and I'm like, "No, I want an appointment with midwives." And so I hear him talking on the phone, and he's like, "They're just telling us to go to the hospital." And I, at one point, screamed. I was like, "I want an appointment with the midwives!" And so they heard me. They're like, "Okay, give us just a second." And apparently they were listening to me have a contraction. And they're like, "Okay, well, you guys can come on over." And so they got me in with one of the midwives, and I was like, "Good." And we got in the car, and we had done this exercise in Bradley where we had to sit on the couch and on my Bradley teacher's couch and pretend that we were in the car. And her comment was, all of my students end up sitting in the front seat, and it is so uncomfortable. And I was just like, so we get in the car and I go to sit in the front seat. He's like, "Are you really gonna sit in the front seat?" And I was like, well, I looked at the back seat. We already had the car seat, and the car seat was installed in the middle. And I was like, yeah. So I sat in the front seat. It was the worst ride to the state midwives office. But we got there, and contractions in the car were awful because I couldn't move, and I had to sit. And from about this point on, the whole time, I just felt like I had to poop. It was super fun. It was just the position he was in, and I knew it was the position he was in, and I tried, and nothing came out. And it was just, so sitting was just like the worst thing in the whole world for me, through my whole labor. And if I sat on anything hard, it was just awful. And so we finally got to the office, and I had 2 contractions. I had a contraction or 2 getting from the car to the office, and so it's like this medical process, so people are like coming out to like check on me, and I'm like, I'm fine, I'm just trying to get to the office, I just need a minute. And my husband's kind of shooting away, and I'm at this point kind of telling I really think it's pretty legit at this point in my head that we're probably gonna have a baby today, because I had to stop and breathe through the contractions, and I couldn't walk while they were going on. So we finally get into the office, and they pull me straight back into a room, and the midwife comes in, and I'm like about to have a contraction, and so I have a contraction, and then she tells me to get on the table, and she was going to check me to see where I was at. Okay. And again, we were getting there at looking hindsight, because I'm a fairly modest person, and at that point it's pants were off, let's go. Legs in the air, where are we at? So she tells me I'm fully effaced and 6 centimeters dilated, and I'm going to the hospital. I'm just like, okay then, let's go to the hospital. So we go over, I delivered at Mercy Gilbert, and so you have to check in through the ER there. So we went and parked, and my husband again was like, "Oh man, drop her off the front door." And I was like, "No, it's fine, just go park the car." And so another brilliant decision on my part, and it was super fun having a contraction in the middle of the parking lot. And so then we get into to check in, and I checked in, I told them, and they were expecting us, since they had called over and told them that we were coming. And so we, one ladies was going to take us upstairs, and they're like, "Do you want a wheelchair?" And I was like, "No, I can't sit down." So they gave me a wheelchair to lean on as I walked, and which was helpful because I had a couple contractions in the hall on the way up. So, but it was a good environment at Mercy Gilbert, and I enjoyed it. The lady that walked us up, we were talking to her, and she was asking what was going on, and I told her, "Well, we just went to the office, and they told me I was just sick." And it was interesting to me that I could have these super fluid, nice conversations with people in between contractions, and then contractions hit, and it was like a whole other world. And so I had a couple of contractions in the hallway, and I remember the elevator opening for us and them sending it on because I couldn't walk because I was in the middle of contractions. So we finally got upstairs, and it was nice having gone to the office because I didn't have to go through triage. So they got me straight into a room, and I ended up we wrote up with the nurse that was going to be my nurse throughout for the first part of labor anyways. And so she got us right into a room, and from getting in the room, the first hour we were there was one of the toughest hours that I was in labor, because they had to get my vitals and baby's vitals when we first got there. So they strapped the thing on the belly to catch his heartbeat and whatnot, and we couldn't get. He kept moving, and so it was difficult for them to get a good reading on him. And I had made it very clear going in that I really just wanted in the tub.